Welcome to the 7th installment of In the Wheat. A short orientation. In the Wheat is the name of a book I wrote back in 1990. It's a book of poetry, and maybe this will be a help to understand what was going on in those poems about a boy who was searching for God.
We were just boys. No wonder you liked us. Remember how we sat up straight and learned to meditate on you. Mornings at 6, when outside the sun was picking its way up the icy-skinned birch tree.
Now, lest we forget, the boys, or the boy that we are talking about here, is a teenager, 13, 14, 15 years old, and making his way in the seminary, wanting to become a priest. That is his goal.
We wondered how priests who told us about you could bear to busy themselves with things other than chalices, patens, and palls, and tear themselves away from things holy, if only for an hour. Intimacies they could indulge in, but we could only long for.
It was our instinct, our natural desire as little boys before seminary time to be close to you. That's why we wanted to be priests. The priest was the one closest, the one at the altar, the one who had special entrance to your sanctuary.
We didn't need theology, or doctrine, or dogma, in order to love you. We loved you for your greatness, and the mystery you were hidden in, and the wiles you used to lead us on.
It was a serious, all-engrossing preoccupation. We were always having you in mind.
Did you know that during a break in games, or just before we served a ball, we would glance over through the trees to your chapel for just a fleeting second? Passers-by would stop along the cinder path to watch us at our spirited football games, but no one knew that we were playing for you with such torrid fervor, as if to woo you over. We held each day in seamless hands, but let go of it at night, to begin anew our playful search for you, whom we could never catch, even when you broke through our vigils with bold forays into our circle.
Such were the moments when our thoughts tended toward you. It was becoming a habit now. It was something that we didn't have to think about. It came like a good habit
When they talked about formation of habits to gain your favor, we listened. But we knew that repetition as such would deprive us of all our pent-up inventiveness.
This way of thinking and acting was not prescribed. No one told us to react that way. This was something that welled up inside us. We wanted to be close to God. Wasn't this the way that love works?
There was one priest, whom we especially esteemed, who spent all his time walking back and forth quietly under the trees.
Yes, we saw him out there, walking under the trees, and it lifted us up. It was an inspiration. Was he thinking the same things that we were? Apparently he was. We never knew, but what we saw inspired us. It was around this time, 1948, 49, that a famous book was published by a Trappist monk, Thomas Merton. It found its way into our seminary, and we read it with great interest. Thomas Merton's book was an immediate success. And for us, it told about life in a monastery. And it told about contemplation. It was along the lines that we were taking, and we found that Thomas Merton was not far from our line of thought.
These are words of Thomas Merton that impressed us. The only one who can teach me to find God is God, Himself, alone. We become contemplatives when God discovers Himself in us. You may perhaps be led into a completely simple form of effective prayer in which your will, with few words or none, reaches into the darkness where God is hidden, with a kind of mute and half-hopeless and yet supernaturally confident desire of knowing and loving Him.
Thomas Merton drove home for us the conviction that only God matters. God must be the center of our life, the ultimate focus of everything we do, everything we think, everything we are. That was a strong conviction that he imparted well.
Had we been born 5 years earlier, we would have had to crawl out on the battlefields of war. But there we were, sitting quietly, reading about soldiers who had returned to wall themselves in cloisters, and their abandon fired ours all the more.
This was just after the war had ended, and so many candidates came to the monastery in Kentucky that it almost burst with candidates for the Trappist life.
We ache to be monks in white cowls, and contemplate, unaware that then and there, you were treating us to favors that seasoned monks had never tasted. Could it be that you spoiled us, like you spoiled no others, because a war had just been waged, and even you needed boyish consolation during those distorted days?
This strikes me now as a haughty statement. How I could imagine that we were a consolation for God.
On thinking back, I remember you as being young and dark, and somehow weak, which was irresistibly attractive. And what was more, you were near, as if in a room next to mine, alone and waiting. It was as if you had torn down all the limits between us, except for that one wall where we lingered, insisting we wanted over. But you didn't banish us for wanting knowledge, but went right on squandering liberties on us, regardless. Or was it because of our endless hankering?
Like jealous lovers, we were worried about you, worried that you might not be at home there with us in our cloistered seminary.
Can you remember the rainy Saturday morning? I sat alone leafing through folios of French cathedrals, worried between pages. You might feel more at home somewhere other than there, with us, on that flat strip of Indiana farmland. There was one among us with high shoulders, Patrick by name, who seemed to know you well already, and what you expected. So we watched and even walked like he, but worried secretly. You might shower your attention on him, and have less left over for us.
How inexperienced we were, how much at the mercy of our own feelings and our own uncontrolled reactions. We were really beginners at this search for God.
You subdued us with your presence, with your being there, gentle as you were.
Yes, perhaps it was this. Your presence, your being there, our knowing and feeling that you were always with us and always taking part, attracting and pulling us to yourself. This might be something that would last us for a lifetime.
You pierced us with years of sweet injuries that would never heal.